Greetings and felicitations.
Hip, hip, hurrah, tally-ho.
How exciting is this? Another countdown. We're halfway there. We are on the road to the rise of Skywalker. And, of course, we have with us Lee Red 2.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for having me.
Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Let's talk about the anticipation for this film, because this was the first standalone Star Wars story that we ever saw in the cinemas. Lee, what was your experience?
The lead up, I was actually getting really excited about some of the rumors that I kept hearing, specifically how they were saying that it was going to be focused on the ground level experience of what it would be like to be in this universe, but not be a Skywalker. And that was one of the things I was most anticipating seeing play out.
What movie theater did you see it in?
Carmike here in Murfreesboro.
How about you, Baby Doll? What was your feelings leading up to this film?
It was very exciting because, we wanted to see like what Disney was going to do with it and just to see how it would tie into the story because all we knew at the time was about the Skywalkers in the Star Wars movies. I was really excited to see this and knowing that it had a female lead too. Well, it came out while we were dating in 2016.
So this was the first Star Wars movie we saw together.
Yes. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
I remember seeing it in Atlanta, and we sat in we had one of those theaters with the seats with the reclining chairs in it, which I liked a lot.
Yeah, those are always fun too. Get comfortable in the theater.
All right, so let's talk about the premises and first the introduction. This movie did not start with an opening scroll. Do you notice that, Lee?
Yeah, it was. I found it real interesting how they played on some of the stuff that we're used to seeing. They didn't go back to everything, which made it really nice when they would sprinkle it in. And I think also, it sets the tone. It's not the epic. It's not the epic that the other Star Wars movies were. This is the standalone, and I think it was appropriate and really set a tone.
Yeah, I agree. This almost had a James Bond type beginning because it had a pre-credit action sequence and then the titles, and then the movie continued on, which was unique for the Star Wars universe. So what do you think about the casting?
Oh, I thought it was knocked out of the park. I loved. I felt like almost every person played their role exceptionally well. Even some of the callbacks, Bail Organa coming in and.
I love that. Jimmy Smits, yes, it tied everything in.
Oh, that's one of the things too that I feel like. More so than even some of the more recent movies, this was pulling from so many different layered parts of the universe, from Rebels to the original trilogy to prequels. It seemed like it just had the appropriate amount of mix and callbacks that really enhanced this for Star Wars fans.
Yes, it was released 2016. Director Gareth Edwards, writer Chris Weitz, Tony Gilroy. The cast included Felicity Jones. She was the star as Jyn Erso. Also Diego Luna, Alan Tudyk, Donnie Yen, Win Jiang, Ben Mendelsohn, Guy Henry. Now he was the one that played, at that time, Governor Tarkin. But they put the face of...
Peter Cushing?
Yes. He put his face over it. What did you think of that, the Peter Cushing CGI?
I do a good job of staying away from spoilers, I try to stay away from as much as possible. So I was blindsided by it when I saw it in the movie theater with both, of course, Peter Cushing and then later Carrie Fisher's appearance. And I thought it was appropriately done. It wasn't jarring. It looked like the actors to me enough, and I was impressed and shocked all at the same time.
I was too. I mean, I thought it was awesome, and I wasn't expecting that either. I didn't know they were going to do that. So to see him there and it looked just like him, it sounded like him, even though it was a different voice, but it really carried you through. The only thing, it might be a little distracting because you're thinking, how did they do that? That's the only thing, but it was great to see it in the movie.
Yeah, apparently there was a I don't remember this scene, but they made a face mask of Peter Cushing for Spies Like Us, and they found that original mask, and that's how they were able to get the accurate CGI for that character.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
It is. And obviously, he had passed, but his family blessed this use, and that was seen in the credits. They thanked the Peter Cushing estate. But also, Carrie Fisher was still alive. And so they had another actress be her body double, but Carrie Fisher gave her blessing on her younger likeness being used for the movie. So we saw it multiple times that this effect was being used. Mads Mikkelsen, he played Jyn Erso. So that's one of the early characters that we saw in the movie. What did you think about his character? How it showed what he did. This whole thing of what his character did, being an Imperial scientist, changed our mental attitude of that port in the Death Star, that weakness.
It was nice that they took something that a lot of people throughout the last few years have been joking about, that hole in the plans, and made it appropriate, and made it on purpose, which I think changed some of the viewpoint. I liked also how there's some legacy novels that you feel like his character ties back to, the idea of the Imperial scientist who's caught up in what the Empire is trying to do. I really liked his character. This movie didn't have many flat characters to me. Very well-rounded personalities, and I love the way that almost every character is introduced, the way that you find their story as it goes along, instead of being really forced upon you at the very beginning. Agreed.
The movie was it was very serious. I mean, even though it had some humor, but in our rewatch, because of the order, we just saw the Solo movie, and that one, it was about a different type of character. He was more of a humorous character, and then we come to this one that's a lot more serious.
Yes, it's got a dark tone to it, which I think is maybe one of the reasons why it resonates a little bit more with some of the older crowd that's gotten a little harder with age, I guess you could say. But it also, I think, made the humor moments even better. I thought there was tons of appropriate humor, tons of humor where it fit in the correct way, and it never felt, nothing in this movie feels forced, which I think in some of the other newer movies you get the feeling of humor being forced and characters being forced. In this, it just had a really good flow and a really, really good balance. I guess a balance of the good, the dark, and the light side of the force and humor, as it were, that played well.
Especially during the rewatch, we found that because there are the little things that you catch when you rewatch it that sometimes they slide by during the initial viewing. I mean, the obvious in the initial viewing was you had R2 and C-3PO made a cameo appearance, which is great because that tied it into the original trilogy and the prequels and all that. So they did have some things to tie it in, callbacks. But did you notice that there was an X-Wing called Red 5, and that one got destroyed? So that's how we know that was Luke Skywalker's call number.
Yes. Yep.
Man, the tie-ins there were great. And then apparently they found some footage that was not used for A New Hope, and they were able to take that footage of cockpits and insert it into this movie. That's why we see familiar characters flying X-Wings. I mean, they're ingenious. I have to say that Star Wars Cinematic Universe is the most fluid and the most visually consistent universe of every single science fiction and fantasy franchise. They really try to make it feel like the time period that it's supposed to be in. They don't overly modernize it. They don't try and say, well, no one's going to accept something that's 40 years old. Yes, we're going to accept something that's 40 years old. We love the 40-year-old Star Wars. That's the whole point of making this fit in.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it has to do a lot with the quality control. Everybody, I know she's not as popular, but Kennedy does a great job, in my opinion, of quality control and overlooking it and making sure that everything is fitting in where it's supposed to. And going back, if you really when the fan base gets critical, it's not that they go backwards. It's when the universe tries to modernize and go a little bit forward in some of their production techniques. But the Rogue One, just the callback to the Rogue Squadron, seeing the red group flying around, for me, that's that's pretty special.
And it is great how this movie ties in with the Star Wars universe. I mean, they made the story fit, and it stayed consistent with everything, which is it's harder to do that with prequels, but they did a good job with this.
And I think some of the brilliance again is not just how it tied in with A New Hope and some of the other Star Wars movies, but they even brought in some of the Rebel stuff, Saw Gerrera and some of the fulcrum aspect of Captain Kasian that you actually see in the Rebels cartoon, or hear fulcrum quite a bit in the way that the spies are supposed to take place. Chopper, they put so much into it to tie it into the bigger universe, and it just makes the experience for fans enriched. And I think that's probably the best way to word it, is this movie enriches a Star Wars fan's experience.
Yes, speaking of Saw Gerrera, my favorite Forrest Whitaker movie is The Last King of Scotland. That movie is a true horror movie. It's not a horror movie by genre. It is the actual history of just a horrible human being, and that was when I saw that movie. That was what opened my eyes to how awesome Forrest Whitaker is. Because in real life, he's like the nicest guy in the world. Everyone around him says they love working with him. He's a true professional actor. He adds a bit of gravity to the roles that he's in. And seeing him in this was so different. He had a role that didn't have a lot of lines, but it did tie into the Rebel series. Now, how cool is that the Star Wars universe is that expansive and that interconnected, that we're able to see characters in their younger selves in animated, and then see how they developed as older people.
I love it, and I think it's just a treat the way that they drop it in for those of us that are invested. For some of our fans, it's a 40-year investment. It's something we've put a lot of time in, put a lot of heart and soul in, and those moments they're just special. And it's crazy to me that across 40 years they can still make this universe get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you can dive into it even deeper. And this movie played a good part in making that happen.
All new Star Wars Rogue One figures and vehicles help the rebels escape the Empire.
Let's get out of here! Call in the Death Troopers! I got a bad feeling about this.
The troopers are closing in. Summon the U-Wing and set for attack mode.
We have you now!
Blast them with the secret Nerf cannon. With the Hasbro Star Wars Studio Effects app, film it and add effects. Ask a parent to download the app. New Rogue One figures and vehicles, each sold separately. Discover your Star Wars adventure.
What did you think about the appearance of Darth Vader in the film?
Oh my God! So I was waiting for you to ask me about the experience watching it, and I think that's gotta be the thing I walked away from. I remember walking away and almost like wanting to get right back in line just to see that moment that we've all waited for. Darth Vader doing the things that give him his what's the word, mystique, and everybody says Darth Vader in all the other movies, the original trilogy, there's a fear that comes across people. And we get one of those scenes that shows why. I mean, he just goes through slicing and dicing, and it was fun to watch.
I loved it too. That was a great scene, and it was just exciting to see it in the movie. And I remember you, baby, saying that was like the best scene in the movie, right?
Oh, the end Darth Vader scene?
Yes.
Oh, we went nuts when we saw that in the movie theaters. It was like, oh my God! This is the Darth Vader that we recreated when we played with the action figures, of him just going ballistic. Because we never saw him do that to that level.
Yes. And then his home, his castle, that was amazing also. I loved how they handled Vader in this movie. Loved it. And that last scene was just gold.
Couple things. I mean, all three of us are big Star Wars nerds, and minutia means something. And they really took it to the top degree when we first saw Darth Vader in this movie, in his full armor, we notice that it is based on the New Hope version of Darth Vader, where you're seeing a little bit of reddish in his eyes because the filters were able for the actors to see through. Later on, they made them darker. So we know that there were some differences in the New Hope armor, the New Hope mask. They tied it in not to the later version, but the earlier version of Darth Vader.
In that kind of stuff, and I keep saying enriches, but it also just shows a lot of respect for so many fans that those things mean so much to. I know you're a member of the 501st, and the details like that some people spend so much time and effort to nail, and then to see that it's almost like a tip of the hat. We're going to do some of the same things and show you the respect and give you those little things that most people are not going to notice, but for us, it's a big deal.
And another thing we talked about when we were doing the rewatch was the droids, and how Star Wars does such a good job with the droids, and how they all have such great characters. Yes,
K2SO. And actually, I think that's one of the things I've enjoyed watching in some of the new movies, how BB-8, K2SO, and then in Han Solo, they are taking the droids and they're becoming even more so. In the original trilogy, I've heard interviews where George Lucas mentioned that the whole story is supposed to be through the eyes of C-3PO and R2-D2. And you get that sense when they walk into the cantina and, we don't serve your kind here. That one line to me in A New Hope gave humanity to droids that it seems like every movie they've just built on that concept. And I think in this one, the droid may be one of the most beloved characters that come out of it.
Yes, that's what I thought too. He was just funny and endearing.
When he I guess I should say spoiler alert. I don't know if we should. I guess that's the whole point of this maybe. But when he gets it at the end, he's the one that was the hardest to watch. You're seeing these humans just get blown away, figuratively and literally, and then but seeing him get taken down was the hardest one to deal with, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk about how Star Wars lore is really interwoven here. We know that this movie didn't feature any Jedis per se, but on screen, this is the first time in the Star Wars universe that kyber crystals are mentioned. What'd you think about that?
Again, it's this movie. I think sometimes with Star Wars, and I don't want to be too critical of some of the other movies, they fall into either telling a story or tipping the hat to some of the old stuff. And I think the beauty of Rogue One is that they were able to do both in an amazing way. The kyber crystals was a tip to the hat, but it also built this story. And some of the other stuff with like the Walrus Man and Dr. Evazan, and the way that they just put things in, it didn't break up the story. It enhanced it, and it just kept tipping the hat. Yavin being at the location in this movie, so much of it just enriches the experience. I keep using that word over and over, but I think that's, to me, one of the best ways of explaining what Rogue One is. It really enriches the Star Wars fans' experience watching it.
And the whole idea, they put the kyber crystal around Jyn Erso's neck, and this harkened back to in A New Hope when the council was talking to Darth Vader, and they referred to the Force as an ancient religion. Now we have the kyber crystal, which powers a lightsaber. She has a kyber crystal around her neck. We see the character of Chirrut Imwe. He keeps repeating a mantra about the Force. So all this does is tie into the Force is not just a bunch of midichlorians, something that someone has more than another person. It adds to the entire aura of this universe, respecting the Force. And if we were to tie it into modern day religions, what are some of the things that come up with modern day religions? We have prayer, we have mantras, we have a piece of jewelry. I mean, doesn't it add to the richness of the Star Wars universe, just simple things like this?
Definitely. I think it makes it more realistic. It fleshes it out, going back to what I said, what I was most looking forward to, the ground level experience. It's almost, as you mentioned, the religious aspects of the Force through the rest of the movies have been like, what if you were one of the deities? And I think this movie, more than any others, it goes to the other side of it. What is that implication on the ground level? I also think it's interesting to go back to, I think, Lucas's first draft when he was calling it, I believe, the Guardians of the Wills. And we actually get to see that out in the movie, which is really cool.
Agreed.
Pedestrian detection engaged.
Take on any galaxy with a car that could stop for you.
Simulation complete.
The new Nissan Rogue. Rogue One, a Star Wars story. In theaters December 16th.
Hey, ground level. Let's talk about the ground level assault. We were talking about when we were doing our rewatch is, hey, here's another environment. We've had snow. We've had deserts. We've had massive cities. It seems like they try desperately to create a new environment. Well, what about a tropical paradise?
Oh, I love it. I love it. In fact, I was hoping we were going to talk about the locations in this movie. I loved from the opening scene all the way to that battle. I loved the way they did the locations. And on the battle scene was one of the best. And then seeing the walkers come through in that environment, we haven't seen that yet, and it was really interesting in watching that unfold. Love seeing how they took the walkers. We've seen them in Hoth, we've seen them in the jungles, and now seeing them in that environment, it just makes it better, makes it more enriched.
True. And also the spacecraft. I like how they used the original Star Wars spacecraft, TIE fighters, as well as X-Wing fighters, Y-Wing fighters, but they build on the mythos just a little bit. Not too much where you feel overwhelmed with product placement for new toys, but for those of us who love toys and love things, we're like, yay! Now we have a U-Wing. Yet another letter to the Rebel alphabet.
Yeah, you almost wish you could be a designer for the Rebels, right? You could just, what's the next one? I guess what letter are we on, guys? Let's come up with the F-Wing and
the F-Wing. And the Imperial as well. They respect the designs. When the new Imperial fighters came in, it still harkened back to the original TIE fighters that it was tweaked. The new AT-ATs that had, it was more of a larger transport. It was tweaked a little bit, but not so far off that you didn't know it was in that AT-AT category.
Yes, definitely. And I think, again, the visuals, the space scenes, the way they even did, I really enjoyed the shield that they had. Like, that concept was really cool, really fun to watch visually to me.
And also looking back, because if you look at episodes 1, 2, and 3, I mean, this movie was not trying to be like those movies. It wasn't trying to be like as grand a scale, and it worked for this because we just you're going through it, and it's just it's a cleaner story. Definitely.
And and I don't want to sound negative towards the Solo movie, but I really appreciate the spin-off of feel of this. That if you are invested, you're going to get something out of it, but you're not tied to a story that's already been told. It connects to a story that's already been told, but it's something completely different. And I really enjoyed that. It's one of the few newer movies that you could have gone into, and you're not ready for what's going to happen at the end. I'm sure there's some people a lot more sophisticated and smarter than I am that could put two and two together and realize it's not going to end well. But for me, the ending of the movie was a little bit of a shocker, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, it's funny. We've already received quite a bit of comments about the Solo story. I think one of the best ones was Solo Story was essentially a made-for-TV movie on the big screen, which is this did not have the epic scale, but it fit into the epic better.
I 100% agree with that, and you don't feel you know, I don't know, I don't want to sound weird, I guess, but you know, you got to be a little bit. But when I went into Solo, and I've gone into Last Jedi, and I go into The Force Awakens, I almost feel like I'm gambling a little bit. You know, you've got all this investment, and you're going in and you're going, man, I hope this pays off, and man, I hope this doesn't go bad. But when I went into Rogue One, I didn't feel the same. I felt like here's something I can sit back and just truly take in and not feel as guarded or as like I'm taking a risk like I do with some of the other movies. Solo, because it's a prequel of a character that means so much to people, there was a feeling going into that of unease, you know, like I wish I didn't have it, but I did. And in this one, because it's a fresh story, I just got to go in and enjoy. And I really, really like that idea. I hope that some of the maybe they come up with some movies and TV shows moving forward more on that aspect.
Agreed. So it's obvious. All three of us enjoyed this movie. I have got to say I enjoyed the movie more on a rewatch than I did initially. And I think because initially it was deviated from the format a little bit too much, and I think because of the release order, this business of going back and forth with the Skywalker saga, then a prequel, Skywalker saga, then a prequel, I don't really like that format to watch it in the movies. I wish they'd just air them all in order. So I think that's one of the greatest joys of us, all three of us doing this together, is watching one Star Wars movie a month in chronological order. It's making sense even more so because we're able to see the natural flow of things.
I was about to actually say the way it flows is enjoyable. It sets it up, and it also shows just how good of a job. Imagine the difficulty of getting that flow when you are almost piecemealing it together from different perspectives. Tip of the hat, great job, and this movie just knocks it out of the park.
Well, thank you again, Lee. We always love talking to you about Star Wars. I know that we are going to be hanging out together very soon, and everybody brace yourselves, because next time we are going to discuss the movie that started it all, the one that set the standard for science fiction and fantasy movies from 1977 onward. Our next episode of Star Pod Log Special Edition will be the original Star Wars.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our Facebook group. Live long, and may the Force be with you. Nanu Nanu.